Thank you all for listening to the replay and all our audience who join us live. Let's dive in. We allow a few minutes to go before actually diving into the topic of what grief means and how to not just deal with it, but how we can use it um, as another way of sourcing life inside of us. Because there might be another way of seeing grief, and that's what we are going to discover today with our special guest, Shirley Shani Ben-Zvi. Shirley Shani Ben-Zvi. I have been practicing to pronounce it. Um, Shirley is an associate marriage and family therapist with her unique perspective on grief and its impact on our lives. Shirley is also helping people navigate the complexities of grief, like I mentioned, loss and family dynamics. She integrates her expertise in therapy and also NLP to provide holistic support to individuals, couples, and families. Shirley believes that even in the hardest times, we can all strive to be the best version of ourselves. Please help me to welcome with some love Shirley in the room. This is actually the first ever LinkedIn Live Shirley joined, so I feel so blessed and honored because you have been as well an expert speaker on my podcast, and having you today with our audience who is going to join to our stage later on, make their question feedback. It is an honor, and I'm so happy we connected, especially because I know so many things are going in Gaza right now. That's where
I'm from Israel.
Israel, right? But so many things politically are going on, and I want to talk about that too because it's all part of Lost. But before we dive into the details and but also very important complexities which create the whole world, like if we don't talk about it, we cannot talk about the big things. But hey, Nancy, it's great you are here. I mean, would you like to share something about that before we even start about what?
I mean, I think it's true for most Israelis, and I know it's true for people in Gaza as well, although they're on the other side of the border, they're people. We're all grieving, and we've been grieving for a very long time. It's beyond the personal losses. It's everything that's going on. Um, so yes, I have some personal connections. My husband is from Nil Oz, and my family lives in another kibbutz not too far from there. But it's beyond the personal loss. It's huge. It's the loss. It's systemic. It's everything that's going on. It doesn't make sense. The entire world doesn't make sense right now.
Mhm.
So we're grieving, and we are striving, each and every one of us in its own way, their own way, in each and every one of us in their own way. Sorry, we're not it, myself included, to be the best version of ourselves. And my best version is someone who feels deeply, but also does things that I consider meaningful, like this life. It helps me as much as I help others. So that's about the sum of it.
Mm. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing. And yes, we are in this space with you grieving, and each of us adds that one light. We all have something to grieve about in the same time.
Yeah.
I saw Nancy raise hand. There will be a time for the questions, and but first, thank you, Nancy, for joining. I would like to also welcome Divine. Re- Help me to pronounce name of Rekesh. Rekesh.
Rakesh. I
Rakesh,
think, but I don't know.
and Clint, thank you all for joining. Um, so Shirley, could you tell us what have you discovered about grief as an expert in this topic? How it can yeah, go ahead. It felt you already wanted you know the answer.
I think I have this response to the word expert. I don't see myself as one because each of us is an expert on their own life, and each of us is an expert on our own grief. So the beginning is I'm not an expert on grief, I'm expert on my grief. And I think that's also the most expert thing to say, right? Like you're
Mm-hmm.
expert on your grief, each and every one of us. The other thing is, yes, it's a process, but it's so not linear and it's so not one size fits all, which is why each of us is an expert on our own. Because I can never be the expert on someone else's grief because it's theirs and it's unique to them. We're not the same, which is the title you gave this is so appropriate because the five stages suggest that we all go through this one size fit all five stages of grief. And if it's a process that's linear and it's one size fit all, then maybe it also has an ending. But grief also doesn't have an ending. It's a lifelong process. It changes with us. It changes as we grow, as our lives grow. Every stage of our life is a little different. We don't grieve, or sorry, we don't grieve the same way when we are different than my 51 self doesn't grieve the same way that my 18-year-old self did. Of course not. So the first thing I discovered is no one can be an expert in someone else's grief or life for that matter. And it's not linear and it's not one size fits all ever.
Mm. Well, I love how you brought up the awareness of, hey, I'm here if you need me, but you are the expert. And it's really, we live in those times when we all are connecting with the source. Um, I mean, we all are taking different time to connect with the source, and realizing that yes, we might need a therapist or someone else from outside, but there is there has to be also some space for us to do that process on our own. There is some kind of, yeah, I almost feel like a sacred space when we are with ourselves, able to give to ourselves that space and just let those emotions um, release them. Um,
Yeah.
could you share with our audience how can we trans I don't know if that's the right word, feel grief, or what to do with grief, how what are the ways to channel it, to transform that grief, or is, or is it okay
Yeah.
to just grieve, or our
We just
lives? Mm-hmm.
we just grieve. It's not supposed to, there is a metaphor I really like. It says grief is like a wound, and wounds when they heal, they become scars. If they're deep, they become scars, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's forever there, kind of, and it's forever there. So you go through it in your own way. You don't have much choice in the matter, and so you go through it in your own way. You figure out the right way for you. And if you need help with that, that's what therapy is for, or sometimes not even therapy. And you find your way. And if you need to transform it, you will. Right? So for me, it's doing meaningful things. For others, it would be something different. I don't know. Eric Clapton wrote a song.
Mm-hmm.
Um, each and every one of us is very different, but we have no choice but to go through it. So any attempt to look away, avoid, um, try to heal it with a band-aid is not going to work. it has to go through, and it will change over life, and it will come back in different ways, and that's okay because the loss is forever. So why should grief stop at any time?
And do you have actually, it made me curious, have you ever researched how our ancestors used to grieve, if they had some rituals around
Yes.
that? Mm-hmm.
So it depends on what ancestors. It's really different for different cultures. I am Jewish, and Jewish tradition. I'm agnostic, but I come from the tradition, right? I'm not religious. Jewish tradition has um, time periods for everything. So there are the first 3 days. They are supposed to be the hardest, and you grieve the hardest. You're supposed to, let your emotions out, and um, there is a tear. You tear in your clothes on the first day, and you leave it there for a week. So there are the first 3 days, and then there is the first week, and those combine. You cover mirrors, so you don't have to look at yourself and worry about how you look, because you're supposed to look awful when you're grieving. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay. You are not supposed to clean yourself, to take a shower, because you're supposed to let go of all the things that matter less when you're grieving.
Mm-hmm.
In ancient times, they sat on the floor. Some still do that. I personally, I sit on a chair, but it's called sitting Shiva for that matter. Sitting and then Shiva is 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to cover TVs, pictures, all the things that are not your grief. And your community gathers around you. They cook, they clean, they make sure that people who come to uh, pay the respect, condolences, they serve them, not you. You're supposed to only be grieving for a week. Only do that. It's gorgeous, and after a week, it's called getting up from from the shiva. You get up. You have a service. You say a prayer during the shiva. People say prayers, but there is one at the end, and you go to the grave site. And then after 30 days, you reveal the gravestone. And again, there is a ceremony around that. And after 30 days, when you reveal the gravestone, you're supposed to get a little more of your life back. So after a week, maybe you'll go to work. After 30 days, men are supposed to not cut their hair or beards and not shave. Some shave after 30 days, some after a year. Because here's the thing: after 30 days, there is a year. And every step of the way, there is something you're supposed to let go of. Some ritual you let go of. Some mourning. Mourning is the public expression of grief. So, in every step of the way, you pause one of the mourning rituals and you go on a little back to life. So, for a year, you're not supposed to go to parties and all that. So, you can go back after a year. And then, after the year is done, every year on the anniversary of the death, you have a memorial. So it's for the life of you, your entire life. You're going to do that. I said a life of you, I meant lifespan. You go through it, and it changes. It is beautiful. It somehow, I find it a little limiting because I don't like people telling me what to do when, and I don't like telling others what to do when. So there is a beauty to it, and there is limitations to it, like any other structure in life, some beauty and some support and uh, some limitations. I think the most beautiful thing about it is the community that gathers around you. You're not supposed to go through it alone. If you ever wondered, by the way, where the habit of bringing food to people who grieve, that's where it came from. That's where it started. Then Christianity adopted it, and so on and so forth. Entire cultures. That's the one that I know best.
Wow, I have never heard about that. And I'm 30 years old, so I feel like why it's not taught about like ways of grieving. Like this is so, I mean, it's not that there are some more beautiful ways of grieving, but at least knowing that there are cultures who really recognize and have a ritual around it, um, it's so meaningful because it means that all that sadness which comes sometimes for months, it all has a reason. That there's actually, um, some culture created a ritual around that timing. Um, it validates you. It makes you feel there's nothing wrong. Like, I wanted to talk a little about the misconception around grief, but I almost feel you touched. Is there anything you would like to add? What are some of the common public misconceptions around?
I said before, there is a misconception that it ever ends. It never ends. It just changes.
Mm-hmm.
The timing is really part of the problem of the structure, by the way, is that it gives you timing. You're supposed to be better after a year, but actually, the first 2 years are considered in nowadays in research early grief.
Mm-hmm.
For 2 years, it's still fresh.
Mm-hmm.
And that expectation that it's been 3 months already, come on, or it's been a year, or it's been 2 years, you're never supposed to, you're supposed to learn to integrate it and it becomes part of your life, it
Mm-hmm.
becomes part of who you are. It's not going away, right? So I'm not supposed, let's take my mom. My mom has been dead for almost 33 years. Yeah, it's going to be 33 years in like 4 days. I'm not supposed to not miss my mom anymore, am I?
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to not sit around all day and think only about that. I'm supposed to raise my kids and go to work. But I'm not supposed to not care. I'm not supposed to not miss her. That's not how it works. So I think the misconception of, come on, it's been 33 years already, that's a big problem because it makes society put pressure on people who grieve to come on already. And we can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be patient with ourselves and others. And now they will come in waves, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for mentioning about your mom and how even now, after 34 years, um, those emotions come up, and I resonate with that too. And I know we all here in the audience have somebody we lost, and how can we support? How can we support not just ourselves, but when we see somebody lost, somebody meaningful? Mm-hmm.
I think, first of all, we need to acknowledge that grief follows loss. So it doesn't have to be death, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone lost a relationship, someone lost an ability. All those are grief processes that we need to acknowledge and recognize and not say, well, at least they're not dead, or at least this, or at least that. So the beginning is validate, acknowledge. There is a great article by Sheryl Sandberg and Adam Grant. The title is Above All, Acknowledge the Pain. First, we have to do that. Stop arguing with people. Stop telling them when it's time to stop or at listing or butting. Don't butt their grief.
Mm-hmm.
Validate, acknowledge. And that goes to reach out. People tend to avoid and kind of, say nothing and hope that if they say nothing, maybe it didn't happen, but it did. So reach out, ask them what they need, ask them not anything you need, but directly, can I cook you a meal? Can I help with the kids? Can I do your laundry? Something that you can do, you're willing to do, and you're not putting it on them to ask you. You offer. But above all, reach out. Hey, I'm thinking about you. You're in my heart. Over the last few days, after the 6 hostages were murdered, I got calls and not calls, I got texts and messages on social media saying, hey, we're thinking about you. Not how are you, because the answer is very clear, but we're thinking about you. That's amazing. It makes you feel less alone. So if there is one thing you can do today, reach out to someone who's grieving. Just say, I'm thinking about you. And then if you can show up and it's okay for them that you show up, show up. But don't do it unannounced necessarily. Make sure it's okay with them. And if you can offer help, be very specific. Because it's beautiful when people say, if there is anything you need. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. The intent is amazing. But we can't really do that, can we? There are things we can do, things we can't do, things we won't do. So you're putting that on someone else to think what they need and then think what is appropriate to ask and then consider if it's okay to ask you. And then maybe you'll have to say no, and that's not great for either of you. So instead, think about what you can do and offer that
Mm. Mm.
if you can. And if you can't, just reach out and say, I'm thinking about you. That's also okay.
Mm. I love what you said. Just a simple message or just a short call. I got a call actually yesterday from a friend, and she was like, "Hey, I'm mentioned similar words that I'm here anytime you need to talk. I'm going through some personal struggles with my partner, and it's around his health and how long he will live, and just her calling me, it made me feel like, wow, no, we don't have to do it alone. Like um, letting people go, and also that all makes me realize how much what you said it already, how much we can control, what's in my control. Can we really say I know how you're feeling, or
No.
are we trying to people please? And um, right, you said no, we can't, but what's there to say? It's just, hey, I'm here, and just leaving that space. I think that's validating, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I got an email this morning saying, I want to check in on you.
Mm.
It's incredible. That's caring. And no, we can never say, I know how you're feeling because, well, as far as I know, we haven't invented the ability to know how someone else feels. Even if it's the same name of the feeling, it's different for each and every one of us. Right? You're not angry the same way I'm angry.
Mm-hmm.
We're not afraid the same way and not of the same things. So I don't know how you're feeling, but I do know it's hard. That I know. And so I'm gonna reach out and say, hey, I know it's a hard time. I'm thinking of you.
It all makes me curious if there will be a space for questions. So please, in the next 8 minutes, I will open the stage. I have one more question. Um, yeah, I think one. Is it a possibility to grieve too much? Like, can grief overwhelm us? How do we notice that we are losing our? Can we lose ourselves in that grief? Is there, in the world of contradictions, um, are we allowed to grieve as much and as often as we want, or would you like to speak to it as a therapist and a human?
Yeah, I think we need to. Grief always overwhelms us, and it at the beginning, in the early grief, which can take 2 years, it overwhelms, and we lose ourselves in it because we're not the same person because the world is not the same world. If you take me now and you throw me in a different planet, I'll be someone different then. There, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I was in Israel, I was just another Israeli. When I came to the United States, I'm the Israeli among the people I know. And I am suddenly the one who is Jewish around the people I know because most of the people around me are Christians. But I wasn't all that there. And that's just when I moved between continents on this planet. Grief is a whole different world because now there is something meaningful in who we were that's no longer there. and it's important to us. So, of course, it overwhelms us, and it depends on the connection that we had to what we lost or who we lost, how deep the grief is, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the meaning of what we lost and the meaning of what we build. So, yes, we can lose ourselves. Can we grieve grieve too much? I think there is a cultural aspect to what's too much, right? We're supposed to be productive, go to work, all these things, and that's outside us. There is too much in the sense that I need to 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 move to a different headspace or a different heart space, uh, which is inner, and that's to me more important. If you feel it's too much for you, then it's too much. Not if people around you feel, but also there is a situation that's called a diagnosis called complicated grief. And while I will dispute probably some of the criteria for it, we can't dispute the fact that it exists. We can argue whether it's after a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, but there is a place where the symptoms, the interference of your life is extreme and it bothers you and people around you, and you just can't move. It paralyzes you. That's complicated grief. And I don't know if it's grieving necessarily too much, but it is when it's time to maybe try and get more help. Now, you don't need to get there to get help. Of course, you can get help for life. You can get help for any struggle. You can get help for any grief. But there is a possibility where it goes to the point where it stops you from living your life for a very long time or beyond what you want, which is again more important. And that's when it's, I don't know if too much, but it's it's something to manage differently.
Mm. Complicated grief. This is the first time I have ever heard about it. I mean that there's actually name.
Yeah, I don't love the DSM definition of
Yeah.
it. Many people that I know and appreciate, we don't love how the criteria for diagnosis, but it does exist. And now it's like saying this is rain and this is just spittings, and we can argue about how much water is rain, but it still exists.
Hmm. Hey, I just wanted you. I loved. I love all the wisdom, and I'm so happy, guys. We are recording. So for those who missed, there will be who missed the beginning. I'll be happy to share the recording. I would like to welcome Christine. She's one of the expose documentary speakers, and she has been expert speaker here 3 weeks ago. I also would like to welcome Platine, and Valid. Thank you, thank you, guys. You are invited to share the event with your friends. You can click the three dots, and let's all the three dots on the top. If you want, only if you want, it's an invitation, so we can spread more awareness. Not awareness, no, just talking about grief, I guess. I'm sometimes using such a big words. I don't understand fully, but, but I guess it's all welcome. Um, so yes, we are going to bring some few of our audience to make their questions. So now's the time. If you have a question, you can raise your hand or any feedback around grief. Um, Otherwise, oh, we have Nancy. Okay, good. So I will bring you.
Hey, Nancy, you've been very patient with us.
You have been so generous with talking about grief, and it all made me. Hey, hello, Nancy. It all also made me thinking how grief is complex, that actually it's not one feeling, it's the combination of so many different feelings behind the grief that it's and that's why the complexity creates this lifetime effect of the grief that for me it always has been like feeling fire in my chest. That's how the grief kind of has been felt by me. But as I talk with people, and I also would like to invite Nancy after she share her feedback, how do you feel grief, like how this grief manifests in you? Hello, Nancy, how are you?
Hello, it's 11 o'clock in Scottsdale, Arizona. I want to say I'm grieving for your people, Shirley. I'm grieving for this tragedy and this mess.
Thank
I
you.
pray daily for it to be over because the needless suffering is just crushing me. Now, I'm trying to realize that I can't solve all the problems of the world. But I also was raised in a Lutheran and in a Finnish family who basically said you're responsible for everything and you're to blame for everything. And I feel guilty for everything. Very
Yeah.
un-Jewish, which is why I love my Jewish friends and my local rabbi and cantor, because how refreshing is that? Completely different from when I grew up. Completely. And the affirmations you get in your Shabbat dinner, oh my goodness, I attended a couple of them. And I was tongue tied when the host looks at me after reading from the Torah, and their kids were amazingly articulate.
Mm-hmm.
And he used these Socratic questions to draw them out. Holy cow. If I would have had that growing up, I would be president of the United States. No, I don't like politics, but I participate in politics, but I do grieve. And how so I'm going to try not to cry here, but I do have cancer. I'm in Scottsdale for 4 months of treatment here. I'm really based in Denver. I thank everybody in the room for their support and prayers, and keep it coming. I don't care in what form and what background you have, it's working. It's working. So I'm lying in bed right now after working out and just taking care of myself. But I'm grieving my past life.
Yeah.
I'm grieving people who used to be in my life have either passed or they just didn't fit in with my life anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm grieving the life that maybe I could have had if I done things a little differently.
How can I be of help?
Nothing. It's just therapeutic hearing people here and just
Mm.
being in the room and hearing more about the 5 stages, because I know, having lost parents and having lost loved ones and friends, babies and adults and older people, and now on my journey to being told I have a year to live, which is ridiculous. Ridiculous.
It is. It is.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. I wanted to speak to that because my partner has been told that like 2 days ago that he has a few months of living, and it hits you and it hits your loved ones because who are you to tell anyone, first of all, how long they have to live? Like what the like of course. But on the other side, um, we don't have to give that power to anyone, right? Like that's what I mean. But I also had to step out and realize, respect that this is your health. I cannot I had to let go grief under what I can control. Like I wanted so bad him to leave, but
I think Nancy, the 5 stages um, don't really exist. We don't all have to go through the same process. Kubler-Ross wrote her observations. It was not research. It wasn't even field observations documented correctly. It was just, this is what I think I see. But it was written for people who got terminal illness, so it may resonate a little more. I wasn't reading, it wasn't addressing people who grieve a loss of a loved one. But for you, of course, you're grieving your past life and the life you thought you would have, and the life you imagine that you probably are not having right now, and all the things you cannot do. And so, I guess the question I want to throw into the air, the question that I always ask in therapy, and I'm not going to do therapy on you, so I'm not just going to throw it and let you take it, is in these circumstances, in this role that you did ask for, in this thing that you cannot change, who do you want to be? What is the best version of you? Because we can't change what is going on around us, but we can change who we are and what our best hope is for ourselves. And if you do want to get more support when you go back to Denver, I know someone excellent there, by the way.
Excellent, excellent. Laura Freeman is my therapist over there.
Oh, okay. So you got it.
But and you speak like a therapist, open ended. So what can I do to help? It's awesome.
Because I am a therapist.
You can't help yourself.
No. So, I don't want to.
No. Keep being your wonderful self for sure. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, to be perfectly honest, I am dating men 20 years my junior. I am going to concerts. I'm staying up till 4 in the morning with people who are like at the cool kid table at the lunchroom.
I mean, it works, right? This is the best version of you for you. Who am I? Who am I to say anything different?
Oh, and my kids would. Good Lord, I can't tell them a thing. My 31-year-old surgeon wants me to move back home with my ex-husband. I'm like, Lauren, Dr. Anderson, please. That would be the most. Now we're talking about depressed. Now we're talking about what my oncologist in Denver talked about, which is palliative care. We're going to keep you comfortable.
Comfortable, yes.
I come to Scottsdale and this clinic called Invita. Oh, it's ridiculous. It's a boutique thing. I want to be an advocate for people who can't afford this kind of care, which is a shame and a sin that this kind of bougie healthcare can only be paid for by people like me. So I want to change that narrative.
There you go.
But I also appreciate Envita's message of longevity. We aren't looking at keeping you comfortable. We're looking at having you live and conquer this.
There you go. And to each what fits them, right? Some people will take this and say, okay, keep me comfortable. That's okay too. I am never going to judge someone for how they manage their own life as long as they don't hurt anybody.
100%. And I see also an evolution in who my contacts are and how I spend my time. I one time saw a post that was very prescient, is it called? It said, if you were told you had a month to live, what would you do? What would you prioritize?
It's a good question.
I'm living that. And I went through my contact list and I raised each name up to God and I said, is this person bring me joy or does my heart clench? Does my breath get shallow because this person gives me anxiety? Delete and block. No explanation. Gone.
Right.
I will love them forever. I won't malign them online or even block them. Some people have blocked me in the listening rooms. I wish they'd come back to me because I'm not going to bother you. We don't see eye to eye, but that's okay too.
Right. It's fine.
So I'll continue to just be my wild child here in Scottsdale and put my sunglasses on and my cap over my eyes. And
Right.
thank you so much, you guys.
Of course.
Well, thank you, Nancy. Thank you. And we are all cherishing you and sending you a lot of love in these hard times while you are grieving and in the same time experiencing different experiences. And I'm so happy about um, it feels like you're blossoming the same time when you're grieving, which even adds more variety of grief and how grief can unfold something beautiful, different, unique for each and single of us, and that we don't need to have an expectation around grief at all. Just let ourselves to be divine. We have a divine with us. How are you?
Hello, Anastasia. I love when you have these rooms. You always bring some good hosts, some beautiful hosts, and some good topics. So thank you. Just want to say thank you, first of all.
My pleasure.
It's good to meet you too, Shirley. I
Good
had
to
a
meet
best
you,
friend. Her
Shirley.
name was I had a best friend. Her name was Shirley, but she did not like her name for some reason.
To each their own.
Right. I just wanted to say that I do have a question, but before I get into the question, talking about grief and how I correlate grief with death and transformation. And I had to do this within my own self because I understand that we all go through different cycles and layers of life, of endings and transitionings and learning and growing and awakening. So when I look at death or when I look at grief, I like to say that I transformed my view around death to awakening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, awake or a viewing, like how we go to awake or a viewing when somebody has passed away, transition. Awake, a viewing, a celebration to new light and new life, And then when Anastasia said blossoming, I just thought about new life and reawakening that bud, that sprout, that flower within all of us. And so, my question to you is because the grieving process for me, as far as people in my life, I've learned that the greater the attachment was for me of the experience of that person, the deeper layers of grief that I had. I
Right.
hope that makes sense, right? So I
It
wanted
does.
to ask you, is that a possibility that the greater the attachment, the deeper layers of grief?
It's it makes perfect sense, and it is because it's all about the meaning of what we lost, and what we lost. The meaning is about that attachment, right? If something is very close to my heart, it means a lot in my life. Then of course my grief is very different than if it's just oh, I missed that episode in the TV show, right? And I just gave an example that maybe for some people it means more, but to me that's not a big deal. So it's all about the meaning of what we lost, and the meaning comes from the attachment. And I will say again, it doesn't have to be death. It can be any loss. If it's meaningful to you, it hurts. And if it's meaningful for you, you're attached to it. And if you're very attached to it, then the layers run deep. By all means, yes.
I love that. Thank you for confirming what my intuition was telling me. And plus, through my own experiences, I love how you say that the five stages of grief and Anastasia as well, it can be all bullshit, right? And I feel like there's layers like a roller coaster because, for example, I'm going to give a quick example that I had a miscarriage and I had to deliver the baby.
Mm-hmm.
The fetus, it wasn't fully well to be a baby, so it was a fetus, but I had to go through the labor and delivery process.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had the fetus, I remember the year, I'm looking at the urn right now, but I feel no more grief, no more pain from it. because of also how I view death as a new light, as a new transformation, as awakening. I feel no more grief, but I feel more love and acceptance. And now that I think about that and looking at my father's passing, my father transitioned about 4 years ago. And today, I literally just shedded another layer of grief from my father. It was just something that it was taught to me that he used to always tell me, you know, I want you to do this and I want you to do it now. And that part of that wounding process and that grieving process still sticks with me. And I had to release some layers of that right before I came into this room. So it was so synchronicity and so on point how I was in alignment to be here in this space and how I had to give myself grace and not looking at my father as any type of resentment, but more acceptance and unconditional love, and just giving myself grace in my present moment today on I don't have to do it right now. I can
Right.
be present. You know what I'm saying? And nurturing myself in that feeling. So the little bits of grieving process, like you said, because that strong attachment of the heart space and that human connection that I had with him was greater than that connection that I had with the fetus in my womb, right? So thank you for answering that question. It was
Of
really
course. Of course.
it felt wonderful.
And it's a
So
full
happy that
circle
we
too,
connected.
because and it's a full circle too, because it's all about the meaning, and you make the meaning. So who am I to be the expert to tell you what you're supposed to be grieving, or how? How arrogant would that be?
That part. So do you just hold space for your clients and just like how do you do it when you allow somebody to speak to you about what they're grieving about?
First of all, I don't allow them, they allow me to come into their sacred space. And then, and it's my honor and privilege that they let me do that. I always, my first question, no matter who walks into my room, is always, what is your best hope from coming to see me? What are you hoping for? How can I be helpful? And then we take it from there. Whatever answer they give me, I ask my next question and my next question. And they will form first an imaginary picture of who that best version of them is. Um, and then the thing about our brain, the beautiful thing about our beautiful brains is it doesn't really know what is imagination and what is not. Like the actual physical cells, not your mind. Your mind knows the difference between imagination and reality. But the physical part of you, that organ in your head, does not. So when you imagine yourself being that best version, it's actually rehearsing. And you know what rehearsing gets you? It gets you to progress. Practice makes progress. Not perfect, but progress. So you literally, step by step, become that best version by realizing who that person is. And that's amazing to witness. And so they come in and I ask them about that best version in my own way, and they get there somehow because I don't ask them about. I mean, they can tell me what hurts, but I ask them who they want to be in that hurt rather than anything else. Um, and it's a special honor to be there, and a special privilege to be there with people as they do that. And by the way, if anyone in this room think that our organ in the head knows the difference between reality and imagination, I would suggest close your eyes and imagine that you suck on a lemon and then notice what happens to your mouth. It reacts. Your taste bud will react. You will have saliva in your mouth, and that's despite the fact that you're not eating a lemon right now. You're not biting in a lemon. But that's what will happen because your brain doesn't know the difference. So let's use it.
I love that. And you're absolutely correct. Even though you didn't need to know that, because I work with psychology and I'm very psychically in tune and my intuition and wisdom and stuff like that. And that is so on point. And actually, if you guys, some of you guys probably already did that and it worked, didn't it? So thank you. It's so great to meet you. And I'm just grateful that Anastasia opened up these rooms and really we like to challenge the status quo of what we have been taught.
Yes.
And it's always deeper than the surface, and there is no limits when it comes to this as well. So thank you for confirming that too. Ooh, I love this. Thank you.
Mm, thank you, Divine, for contributing. And you made this great point on that it's not necessary about what we are losing, but it's about the grief has to do with the attachment we develop. Um, and that's so true because sometimes it's so easy to judge people who are in the grieving process when we have no idea what it meant for them, we as a society and culture. And honestly, after this show, I'm going to Google all around that rituals you shared at the beginning of tearing your clothes. I want to see some videos. I mean, this is like a really exciting way of celebrating grief. And I love the contradictions, the word of duality that um, there is always the opposite word of the experience we're going through on the other side when we allow ourselves to fully grieve. And the blossom which comes after is like the cycle of life. But I will say that we are 5 minutes before the end, and I want to um, ask Zarar. Is that how do I pronounce your name?
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
You know, uh,
Thank you for joining.
thank you for bringing me up on stage. This grief and mourning and lamentation, uh, you know, uh, let's understand this way. I mean, being a more believer and being in that way of like faith fusionist. I'm Muslim and I'm from this part of the world, Pakistan. Okay, and over here today, they have a very big festival where thousands of uh, believers of Imam Hassan, Allah's Imam Hassan, they are doing grief and lamentation here today. Why? Let me tell you. Let's see the life of Adam. Why he was thrown out of the paradise when he was living, and then that grief for years and years. He was with Eve, asking for forgiveness for his sins. It's a prophetic tradition, having it's a prophetic tradition from starting from Adam, going up to Jesus, Noah, Moses, up till Muhammad. And if we can understand these personalities, I think everything is solved in life. Uh, Thank you. I mean, our company is short, and death is very near. And when we lose someone in our families, of course, it's like they say your body that gets purified with water, right? And your ego with tears, and your intellect with knowledge, and your soul with love, pure love. So, and of course, this unconscious mind is more stronger than conscious mind, but we are not that clever as humans, right? So, thank you so much for putting me up on stage.
Thank you for this comment.
Yes, thank you, Zarar.
And you know what? There is something what Shirley was saying that imagination or reality. I would say that I would compare imagination with knowledge. Like with the knowledge is limited, right, Shirley? But imagination, with the help of imagination, you can encircle the whole world.
Yep.
With the help of, right? So I know what your perspective was, but that reminded me of Einstein quote. So thank you, Shirley. You were so amazing. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm sending love to you and your community who's in this beautiful ritual of grieving in your village. Thank you. Shirley,
Yes.
this is the time. Da-dun, da-dun. This is the time when we are ending, but we are not ending the grief. We are going to grieve more often. I hope after this episode you guys put music for. I mean, this is my way of grieving. I put crying music. I put candle. I'm sometimes like start to cry, like a fake cry, and then the tears come out after a while when I just pretend fake crying. But Shirley, how people can find you, how people can connect with you?
So I am here on LinkedIn. You all have my contact here. I am also, my website is Good Grief Family Therapy. Yes, goodgrief.com. You can find me there. I am on YouTube. I will put a link later on my LinkedIn. There is a link to there. All these places you can find me and ask me questions and make your comments and get into discussions. I'm always up for it.
Mm. You are one in kind, Shirley. You're one in kind. I will be adding those links in the comments together with the replay for Paulette. She's my friend from UK, and Paulette, especially for you, there will be a replay if you want to listen, and anyone else. Thank you all for listening, joining, contributing, especially for being together in this holy space, sacred space, and just it means everything when we get to experience that it's all welcome and we don't have to do it alone. And there are therapists, experts who specialize in making that journey less alone. Yeah, less alone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for opening all these spaces. I mean, that's amazing.
Shirley was the one actually last week messaged me, hey, let's do it. Like, I can't wait. And I was like, oh yeah. So sometimes, it's like a dance. We get inspired to talk about certain topic and we go with the flow. But thank you all for your attention. And if you're available this Thursday, we do have the premiere. I can talk about it enough, like about my expose documentary series, and because I want to welcome you all this Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time. There will be a live stream on Expose YouTube channel, but we all get to meet on Zoom, and you are invited to join, see the documentary of 60 minutes of Groomed, where we show real story, including my own story of being groomed by my life coach, and together with 88 people who are sharing the story of being groomed as well. That screening of 60 minutes will be followed by open panel with the expert speakers from the documentary, and you are all welcome to join, share, just like today. Camera can be off, no video, it can be just an audio. So we are all invited. Thank you all. It has been a pleasure. Shirley Shani Ben-Zvi. Thank you.
Thank you. Make it a wonderful day, all.
Thank you so much for tuning into Expose Live Room LinkedIn event. Please feel welcome in our upcoming premiere of The Groomed. 88 stories of people from 6 continents are going to share how the 5 stages of grooming really look like in their situation, and also how they were able to escape and heal from it. Join us on September 5th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. See you soon. Much love.